The sun was just rising over the palace, sending soft golden light through the tall windows and filling the rooms with warmth. The princess stood by the balcony, her hands resting on the cool stone railing, looking at the gardens below. Birds were chirping, and the fountains sparkled in the early morning light. But even in this peaceful moment, her mind was not calm. She had sensed something unusual the night before, a feeling that something was about to change. It all started when a human arrived at the palace gates. Humans were not allowed here, and their presence was rare and often unwelcome. The guards had found him wandering near the forest path that led to the palace, looking lost and confused. He had no idea where he was or why he was there. The palace advisors whispered among themselves, some worried about the danger he might bring, others curious about how he had managed to reach the royal grounds. The queen had been informed immediately, and she was not pleased. She had strict rules about outsiders, especially humans. Entering her daughter's world, the princess felt a strange pull toward him from the moment she heard about him. It was not fear or caution like everyone else felt. It was curiosity and something deeper, a sense that this human was not just another stranger but someone she might need to understand. She remembered the first time she had seen him. He was standing awkwardly near the fountain, his clothes wrinkled and dusty, and his eyes wide with wonder. He looked around as if he could not believe the beauty and the magic around him. The princess had felt a sudden desire to go to him, to see who he was and why he had come here. That morning, she decided she could not wait any longer. She walked down the long hallways of the palace, her footsteps echoing softly against the marble floors. The servants and attendants looked at her with surprise. It was unusual for the princess to leave her room so early, and even more unusual to head straight to the guest area where the human was being kept. When she arrived, she found him sitting on a bench, staring at the sky and lost in thought. He looked up as she approached, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. There was a quiet understanding in that moment, a connection neither could explain. The princess smiled softly and sat beside him. "You must be tired and confused," she said gently. "This place can be overwhelming at first." The human nodded. I don't even know how I got here," he admitted. His voice was quiet and unsure, filled with wonder and a little fear. "Everything is so different." She laughed lightly. "Yes, it is different. But it is beautiful too, isn't it? This is my home, and I know it well. I can show you around if you like." He hesitated, looking around as if the walls themselves were alive. "Are you sure that's safe? I mean, you are a princess, and I am just me." "You are not just you here," she replied. "I can see that. You're someone important, even if you do not know it yet." The human looked at her in surprise. No one had ever spoken to him like that before. He was used to being small, invisible, someone who had to hide in plain sight. Yet here was this princess, speaking to him with kindness and respect, as if he belonged. They walked together through the palace gardens. The princess showed him the fountains, the flowers that glowed softly in the morning light, and the statues of past rulers. The human could not stop asking questions. "Is this real? Can humans ever see this kind of place?" he asked in amazement. "Not usually," she admitted. "But you are here, and that means you are meant to see it. Sometimes the world brings people to places they are meant to be, even if they do not understand why." As they walked, the princess told him small stories about the palace and its history. She spoke of her childhood, the lessons she had learned, and the games she had played in these gardens. The human listened intently, fascinated by every detail. For the first time in his life, he felt safe, as if he had found a place where he belonged, even if only for a short time. Meanwhile, the queen had been watching from a distance. She had been told about her daughter's interactions with the human and was not pleased. She did not understand why her daughter seemed so drawn to him, why she smiled at him as if he were someone special. The queen had always believed that humans were unpredictable, dangerous, and unfit for their world. She had tried to teach her daughter the importance of caution, of protecting herself and the kingdom from outsiders. Yet, as she watched, she could not deny that her daughter seemed happy in his presence. Free in a way the queen had rarely seen, the palace advisors were also uneasy. Some whispered that the human could be a spy, or that his arrival might be a sign of danger. Others were curious, wondering what it meant that a human had reached the royal grounds. But none of them had the courage to approach him. They waited for the queen to decide what should be done. Back in the gardens, the princess and the human sat by a small fountain. The princess picked up a smooth stone and skipped it across the water. The human tried, laughing as the stone sank quickly. "I am not very good at this," he admitted, slightly embarrassed. "It does not matter," she said with a smile. "It is not about being good. It is about trying and enjoying the moment." For a while they sat in silence, listening to the water and the birds. The princess felt a sense of peace she had not known in a long time. There was something about this human that made her heart feel lighter, something that made the worries of the palace fade, even if only for a few moments. She did not yet understand why she felt this way, only that it felt right. Later, they explored the palace halls. The human marveled at the tapestries, the paintings, and the treasures that lined the walls. The princess showed him the library, where shelves of books stretched from floor to ceiling. She pulled down a few volumes and read aloud, sharing stories of distant lands and past heroes. The human listened, captivated, forgetting for a moment that he was far from home and completely out of place as the day went on. The princess knew she had to return to her chambers before the queen noticed she had been away so long. But she did not want to leave him behind. "You will stay here, I hope," she said softly. "I will see you again soon?" The human nodded, feeling a strange warmth in his chest. I will wait," he said simply. For the first time he felt hope, a sense that he was part of something bigger than himself. The queen, watching from afar, felt a mixture of curiosity and concern. She did not understand the connection her daughter had formed with this human. She had always believed in order, rules, and caution. But seeing her daughter so alive, so happy, stirred something within her. Still, she knew she had to speak to her daughter soon, to ask the question that had been on her mind since the human arrived. She wanted to know why her daughter seemed so attached to someone so different from them, as the sun began to set. Casting long shadows across the palace, the princess returned to her chambers. She could not stop thinking about the human, about the way he had looked at her, the way he had laughed, and the way he had seemed to belong in a world that was not his own. She knew that something important had begun, something that would change her life, and perhaps the kingdom itself. That night, as she lay in her bed, she wondered how the queen would react when she finally asked about him. She knew it would not be easy, that her mother would not understand immediately. But she also knew that she could not hide the truth. The human was special, and she felt a need to protect him, to keep him close. The thought filled her with both excitement and fear. In the quiet of the palace, the human sat by the window of his temporary room, looking up at the stars. He thought about the princess, about her kindness, and the way she had shown him a world he had never imagined. He did not know what the future held, but for the first time, he felt that he was part of something greater, something magical. He felt a sense of belonging he had never known before. Outside, the palace was calm, the gardens bathed in silver moonlight. The fountains shimmered, and the statues seemed almost alive in the soft glow. In the midst of this quiet beauty, a bond had begun, one that neither the princess nor the human fully understood yet. But it was real and it was strong, a connection that would grow and face challenges in the days to come. The next morning, the palace awoke to whispers of the human's presence. The queen called her daughter to her side, her voice calm but firm. "Who is that?" she asked, looking at the princess with a mixture of concern and curiosity. The princess looked back at her mother, her eyes shining with determination and warmth. "My human," she replied simply, and in those two words, everything began to change. The next morning, the palace was filled with a quiet tension. The queen had asked the question she could not stop thinking about: who the human was and why her daughter cared for him so deeply. The princess had answered simply, calling him her human, but that had only increased the queen's curiosity and unease. She had spent the night pondering what it meant and what this human could bring into their world. Meanwhile, the princess could not wait to see him again. She went to the garden where he had been the day before. The human was already there, standing near the fountain, watching the water sparkle in the early light. When he saw her, his face lit up, and a shy smile appeared. It was a smile that seemed both relieved and happy, as if he had been waiting for her all night. "Good morning," she said softly. "I hope you slept well." "I think so," he replied, still unsure about the strange new world around him. "It is not like home at all, but I guess I am getting used to it a little." The princess laughed. "It will take time, but I can help you. I want you to understand this world, even if only a little, so you do not feel lost." They spent the morning walking through the gardens and corridors of the palace. The princess showed him hidden paths, secret rooms, and quiet places where the walls themselves seemed to listen. The human asked many questions, not just about the palace, but about her life, her family, and her responsibilities. He was genuinely curious, and his interest made the princess feel important in a way she had never felt before. As they walked, the princess noticed that he had a natural way of observing things. He did not rush, did not judge, but simply looked, listened, and tried to understand. It reminded her of the way she sometimes watched the world quietly and thoughtfully. She felt a connection forming, one that was deeper than simple friendship. She knew she could trust him, that he would not betray her or the kingdom. In the afternoon, they found themselves near the library, a grand hall filled with books from floor to ceiling. The princess opened a few volumes and began reading aloud, telling stories of past heroes, distant lands, and incredible adventures. The human listened closely, completely captivated. He asked questions about the stories, about the people in them, and about the lessons they held. The princess was happy to answer, feeling proud of her knowledge and excited to share it. "You really know a lot," he said, amazed. "I never imagined there would be so much to learn." "There is always more," she replied. "And it is not just about knowing, it is about understanding, about seeing the world in a way that others might not." As they continued their conversation, the princess could sense that their bond was growing stronger. The human had a way of making her laugh, of asking questions that made her think, and of noticing small details that others often overlooked. She found herself looking forward to each moment with him, eager to see what he would say next or what new things he would notice. However, the queen was not idle. She had sent her trusted advisors to observe from a distance, to report back anything unusual. She wanted to ensure that her daughter was safe and that the human did not pose a threat. But even as she watched, she noticed that the human did not act like a threat. He was kind, curious, and gentle. He treated her daughter with respect and care, and there was a sincerity in his actions that could not be ignored. In the evening, the princess led the human to a quiet terrace overlooking the palace gardens. The sky was painted with colors of pink, purple, and gold, and the air was cool and fragrant with the scent of flowers. They sat together, talking softly about their dreams, fears, and hopes. The human shared stories of his life before coming to the palace, about the people he loved and the challenges he had faced. The princess listened, feeling a mixture of sadness and admiration for him. She realized that he had been through so much, yet he remained strong, kind, and hopeful. "I have never met anyone like you," she said quietly. "You are brave in ways I cannot even describe." He looked at her, surprised and touched by her words. "I have never felt like I belonged anywhere," he admitted. "But with you, I feel, I don't know, like I am part of something bigger." The princess smiled, feeling a warmth in her heart. "You are. You belong here, at least with me, and I will help you find your place." As the days went by, they spent more time together. The princess taught him about the palace, its rules, and its history. She showed him how to walk through the halls without disturbing the staff, how to behave in the court without causing offense, and how to understand the customs of their world. The human absorbed everything eagerly. Determined to learn and to fit in, the palace staff began to notice the unusual friendship. Some were curious, some skeptical, and some openly disapproved. But the princess did not care. She had found someone she could trust, someone who made her feel alive and understood. The human, in turn, was grateful for her guidance and kindness. He felt that he had found a friend, a protector, someone who believed in him. One day, while walking near the palace stables, they heard a commotion. A group of palace guards had discovered that a small animal had entered the gardens and were trying to catch it. The human laughed, watching the scene unfold. "It looks like a wild adventure," he said. The princess smiled and joined in the chase, helping the guards gently guide the animal out of the gardens. It was a small event, but it showed the human that life in the palace was not always serious, that there was room for play, laughter, and joy. As the days turned into weeks, the queen continued to watch her daughter and the human. She could not understand fully why her daughter cared for him so much, why she seemed happier and more confident when he was around. But she could not deny that their connection was real. The human was learning, adapting, and showing a loyalty that impressed even the queen. She began to question her own beliefs about humans and whether she had been too strict in her rules. One afternoon, the princess and the human found themselves in the palace courtyard, sitting by a fountain. The sun was warm, and the air was filled with the scent of blooming flowers. The human turned to her, a serious look on his face. "I feel like I owe you something," he said. "You have shown me a world I never imagined, and you have treated me like I belong. I don't know how to repay that." The princess shook her head gently. "You do not need to repay me. Your presence is enough. That is all I need. But promise me you will always be honest with me, no matter what happens." "I promise," he said firmly, looking her in the eyes. In that moment, a bond of trust was solidified, one that would withstand challenges and trials to come. As evening fell, they walked back toward the palace, their shadows long on the cobblestone paths. The human had begun to feel comfortable in this new world, not just as a visitor, but as someone who mattered. The princess felt a deepening connection, a sense that their meeting had not been by chance. Something important was unfolding, something that would shape both their lives. That night, as the palace settled into quiet, the human sat by his window, thinking about the princess and the world he was beginning to understand. He felt a mix of excitement and nervousness about what lay ahead. The princess lay in her room, thinking about him, about the bond they shared, and about the future that seemed uncertain but full of possibilities. They both knew that challenges were coming, but for the first time, they felt ready to face them together. The queen, observing from her chambers, finally began to sense that the human was different from what she had feared. He was not a threat, but a companion who had touched her daughter's life in a meaningful way. She still had questions, still had doubts, but the beginnings of understanding were forming. Slowly, she began to see that her daughter's happiness and the human's presence were connected in ways she could not yet fully comprehend. In the quiet of the night, the palace seemed peaceful, but the world outside was changing. Rumors were spreading, whispers of a human in the royal palace reaching ears in distant lands. The princess and the human did not yet know what challenges would come, but they felt the strength of their connection. They knew that together they could face whatever lay ahead, learning from each other and growing stronger. And so, as the moon rose high over the palace, a bond of trust, friendship, and curiosity had been firmly established. The human was no longer just a visitor. He was someone who mattered, someone who had found a place in the princess's world. The princess had found someone who understood her in ways few could, and the queen, though cautious, was beginning to see that sometimes the heart knew what the mind could not yet understand. The next morning began quietly, but the palace seemed heavier, as if the walls themselves could feel the tension in the air. The queen had been thinking all night about her daughter and the human. She could no longer ignore the bond that had grown between them. The princess had called him her human, and even though it was a simple phrase, it carried a weight the queen could not yet understand. Today she decided she would speak to her daughter directly, and she would demand answers. The princess, unaware of the queen's decision, had spent the early hours walking through the gardens with the human. The morning mist hung low over the flowers, and the dew made the grass sparkle under their feet. The human was trying to learn the names of the flowers and the birds, while the princess patiently explained everything with gentle enthusiasm. She noticed the way he listened, how his eyes lit up when he understood something new, and how carefully he observed the world around him. It made her smile in a way she had not smiled for a long time. As they walked, they found a quiet pond surrounded by willow trees. The human knelt at the water's edge, tossing small pebbles and watching the ripples. "I've never seen water like this before," he said softly. "Where I come from, ponds are small and dull. This is alive." The princess sat beside him, resting her hand on the cool grass. "Here, everything has its own life," she said, "even the stones and the fountains. You have to look carefully, but you can see it if you try." He turned to her, curiosity and wonder written across his face. "You make it all seem magical, even the things I would never notice." She smiled, feeling warmth in her chest. "Maybe it is magic, or maybe it is just that we notice it together." Their peaceful moment was broken when the queen appeared at the edge of the garden. She walked gracefully, her presence commanding attention without force. The human rose immediately, sensing the seriousness in her approach. The princess, seeing her mother, felt a mixture of apprehension and determination. She knew this conversation was coming, and she had to stand her ground. The queen's eyes were calm but piercing. "You have spent a great deal of time with this human," she began. "Tell me why. What is it about him that draws you so strongly?" The princess looked at her mother, steady and clear. "He is kind, brave, and honest. He treats me as an equal, not as someone to be admired or feared. He is my human mother. That is all I can say." The queen's lips pressed together. She did not expect such a simple answer, yet she felt the weight of it. "You call him your human. Do you understand the danger of this? Our world is not like his. Humans do not belong here. They cannot always understand our ways, our responsibilities. You risk more than you realize." The princess nodded slowly. "I understand the risks, but I also understand that he is someone I can trust. I cannot ignore that." The queen studied her daughter, noticing the determination in her eyes. It was different from the careful caution the princess usually displayed. There was a strength and confidence there that had grown since the human arrived. The queen could not deny that her daughter was happier, more alive. Yet her protective instincts still screamed caution. She could see the bond between them, but she worried about what it could mean. The human, sensing the seriousness of the conversation, spoke carefully. "Your Majesty, I do not wish to cause harm. I only wish to learn and to be here, to support her in any way I can. I know I am different, but I mean no danger." The queen regarded him closely. There was sincerity in his voice, a truth that could not be faked. His eyes were honest and clear, showing courage in a way that even she could respect. She felt a strange shift in her thoughts. Perhaps he was not the threat she had feared. Perhaps he was something else entirely. "Very well," the queen said at last. "I will observe you both carefully. I will not allow harm to come to my daughter. Nor will I permit any breach of the rules of this palace. But you must understand, human, that your presence here is unusual. You must follow my guidance and show that you are worthy of trust." The human bowed slightly. "I understand, Your Majesty. I will do my best." With that, the queen stepped back, leaving the princess and the human alone again. The princess exhaled slowly, feeling the weight lift slightly from her shoulders. She had spoken her truth, and her mother had listened, even if reluctantly. The rest of the day was spent in shared learning and quiet adventures, the princess introduced. The human to the palace staff, explaining his presence and vouching for his character. Some staff members were skeptical, but most were curious, watching as he adapted to their world with patience and respect. He learned quickly, understanding the routines and customs, and showing that he could be a reliable companion to the princess. As they moved through the palace, the princess noticed how attentive he was to details. He remembered the names of the staff, noticed when flowers needed watering, and even helped with small tasks around the kitchens. The human was not just a visitor. He was becoming part of the rhythm of the palace, showing that he could fit into their world in ways no one had expected. In the late afternoon, they found themselves in the palace courtyard, where children of noble families often played. The human watched as they ran and laughed, fascinated by the differences and similarities between their world and his. The princess took his hand and joined in the games, teaching him how to play, how to move, and how to enjoy the lighthearted moments without fear. He laughed genuinely and freely, and she laughed with him, feeling a joy that she had not experienced in years. The queen observed from a distance, her face unreadable. She could see her daughter happy, alive, and connected. The human had proven himself not just capable, but caring, considerate, and brave. Slowly, the queen's heart softened, though caution remained. She knew that the human's presence could have consequences, but she could not deny the happiness he brought her daughter. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, the princess and the human walked through the palace gardens once more. The fountains shimmered, and the flowers glowed in the fading light. They spoke softly about their dreams, the future, and the possibilities that lay ahead. The human shared stories of his home, his family, and the life he had left behind. The princess listened with empathy, feeling the depth of his experiences and the courage it took to face an unknown world. "You are stronger than you realize," she said. "You have faced challenges I could never imagine, yet you remain kind and hopeful. That is rare, and it is why I trust you." The human looked at her, a mixture of humility and gratitude in his eyes. "I have only found strength because of your guidance and your trust. You make me believe in myself." Their conversation was interrupted by the soft sound of the palace bells, signaling the evening meal. They walked back slowly, hand in hand, feeling the bond between them grow stronger with each step. The princess knew that challenges would come, that there would be tests and trials, but she also knew that together they could face anything. That night, the human sat by his window, reflecting on the events of the day. He felt a sense of purpose and belonging he had never known before. The princess had not only shown him a world of magic and beauty, but had also shown him that he could matter, that he could make a difference. He felt gratitude, admiration, and a quiet determination to protect and support her in whatever way he could. The princess lay in her room, thinking of the conversation with her mother, of the games in the courtyard, and of the quiet moments by the fountain. She knew that the queen's approval, even if cautious, was a step forward. She felt a mixture of relief and anticipation. The bond she shared with the human was growing stronger, and she knew it would be tested in ways they could not yet foresee. As the palace settled into night, a sense of calm and quiet purpose filled the air. The princess and the human had faced the first test of understanding and trust, and they had passed it together. The queen, though still wary, could no longer ignore the truth she had seen. The human was not just a visitor. He was someone important, someone who had earned a place in her daughter's life. The stage was set for the challenges and revelations to come. Both the princess and the human felt ready to face them. Knowing that their bond would guide them through the uncertainty ahead, the following morning, the palace was unusually quiet. The usual chatter of servants and the distant clatter of hooves seemed to have softened. The queen had spent the night thinking deeply. She had seen her daughter's bond with the human grow stronger day by day, and she could no longer ignore the reality of it. Though she still had doubts, she also saw that he was more than a visitor, someone who cared, someone who could stand by her daughter in a way few others could. But the world outside the palace walls was not always kind or forgiving, and danger often came when least expected. The princess, unaware of the queen's contemplations, woke early and went to meet the human. He was already waiting near the palace gates, staring out toward the forest beyond. He had begun to explore the edges of the palace grounds, curious about the lands that stretched beyond what he could see. When he saw the princess, his face brightened, and he hurried to her side. "Good morning," she said softly. "Are you ready for today?" He nodded. "I feel like I am ready for anything as long as you are with me." They walked together through the gardens and the main halls, enjoying the warmth of the morning sun. The princess showed him a hidden passage that led to the palace archives, a place few ever entered. She explained the history of their kingdom, the lessons learned from past rulers, the mistakes that had been made along the way. The human listened carefully, asking thoughtful questions, showing that he was not only attentive but willing to learn and understand the world he had entered. As they reached the archives, a sudden alarm rang through the palace. The sound was sharp and urgent, echoing through the halls. The human's eyes widened in surprise, and the princess grabbed his hand. "Stay close to me," she said, her voice steady but tense. Something is happening. They hurried through the corridors to the source of the alarm. A group of palace guards had cornered a group of outsiders trying to breach the palace walls. They were armed and clearly meant to cause harm. The princess's heart pounded, but she did not falter. She looked at the human, knowing that their bond would help them face this challenge. "We must help," she said. "We cannot let them harm anyone." The human nodded, his fear tempered by determination. Together they approached the guards, offering assistance. The princess used her knowledge of the palace to guide the guards, showing them hidden passages and points of advantage. The human helped wherever he could, moving quickly, using his wits to distract the intruders and protect the palace staff. It was chaotic, but their combined efforts made a difference. They moved as a team, understanding each other without words. Their trust in one another growing stronger with every passing moment. The intruders were eventually driven back, retreating into the forest beyond the palace walls. The guards breathed heavily, exhausted but grateful for the assistance of the princess and her companion. The princess looked at the human, pride and admiration shining in her eyes. "You were incredible," she said. "I knew you had courage, but you faced danger without hesitation." The human shook his head, slightly embarrassed. "I only did what I could to help. I could not let anyone get hurt." The queen, who had arrived at the scene after hearing the alarm, watched quietly from a distance. She had expected her daughter to be capable, but she was surprised at the human's bravery and quick thinking. He had acted not out of fear, but out of a genuine desire to protect others. It was clear that he was more than he appeared, and the queen began to feel a sense of respect for him. Though her caution remained, after the commotion settled, the palace returned to a state of calm, though the tension lingered. The princess and the human walked through the gardens, catching their breath and speaking softly. "That was dangerous," the human said, still feeling the adrenaline. "I did not expect anything like that when I arrived here." The princess smiled faintly. "Neither did I, but we faced it together. And we are stronger because of it." They spent the rest of the day helping with repairs to the palace gates and walls. The princess showed the human how to use tools, how to organize supplies, and how to coordinate efforts with the palace staff. He learned quickly, proving that he was adaptable and willing to take responsibility. His presence was becoming invaluable. Even the staff who had been skeptical began to see him in a new light in the evening. The princess led the human to a quiet terrace overlooking the gardens. The sky was painted with the soft colors of sunset, and the fountains reflected the light in shimmering patterns. They sat together, speaking quietly about the day's events, their voices blending with the gentle sounds of the palace at dusk. "You were amazing today," the princess said. "You helped protect everyone, and you did it without hesitation. I am proud of you." The human looked at her, a mixture of humility and gratitude in his eyes. "I could not have done it without you. You guided me, and your trust gave me the courage I needed." The princess reached out and took his hand. "We make a good team," she said softly. "I believe that together we can face anything, no matter how difficult or dangerous." As night fell, they returned to their respective quarters, both reflecting on the day. The human felt a deep sense of belonging, knowing that he had proven himself in a way that mattered. The princess felt a mix of pride and reassurance, knowing that her trust in him was well placed. The queen, observing from her chambers, felt a shift in her perception. She could no longer deny that he was capable, loyal, and brave. She began to realize that her daughter's choice, though unconventional, had merit. Over the next few days, the palace slowly returned to its usual rhythm. The incident with the intruders became a story whispered among the staff, highlighting the bravery of both the princess and the human. Their bond continued to grow, strengthened by shared experiences and mutual trust. They explored hidden corners of the palace, shared meals with the staff, and engaged in quiet moments of learning and laughter. The human adapted to the palace life with remarkable ease, showing patience, humility, and a willingness to contribute. The queen began to spend more time observing them together. She noticed how the human treated her daughter with respect, how he supported her without overshadowing her, and how their connection seemed to bring out the best in both of them. Slowly, her skepticism began to soften, replaced by a cautious understanding. She still had questions and concerns, but she could no longer deny the truth she had witnessed. The human was not a threat, but a companion, a friend, and perhaps something more. One afternoon, the princess and the human discovered a small, hidden garden within the palace walls, a place few had ever seen. The air was fragrant with blooming flowers. The sunlight filtered through the leaves, creating patterns of light and shadow. They spent hours there, exploring, talking, and simply enjoying each other's company. It was a sanctuary, a place where the pressures of the palace and the expectations of the world could not reach them. "This place is beautiful," the human said quietly, looking around in awe. "It feels like a secret made just for us." The princess smiled. "Perhaps it is. Sometimes the world gives us small gifts to remind us of what is important." They sat together in silence, letting the sounds of the garden fill the space between them. The princess felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that the human was not only a part of her life, but a part of her world. The human felt a sense of wonder and belonging, knowing that he had found a place where he was valued and understood. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the garden, the princess and the human returned to the main palace. They knew that challenges would come, that the world outside the walls was unpredictable and sometimes dangerous. But they also knew that their bond was strong, that their trust and understanding would guide them through whatever lay ahead. That night, the human reflected on the events of the day, feeling a deep sense of purpose and determination. He had proven himself, not just to the princess, but to the queen and the palace staff. He had shown that he could face danger, act with courage, and support those he cared about. He felt a growing confidence. Knowing that he was no longer just a visitor, but a part of something greater, the princess lay in her room, thinking about the garden, the day's events, and the bond she shared with the human. She knew that the queen's cautious acceptance was only the beginning, that challenges and trials would come. But she also knew that together they could face anything. Their trust, respect, and care for one another had become a foundation, strong and unshakable. As the palace settled into night, the quiet moments of reflection brought clarity and reassurance. The princess and the human had faced their first real challenge together, and they had emerged stronger. The queen, though still vigilant, had begun to see the truth she had resisted. The human was more than capable, and their bond was genuine. The stage was set for the future, for the challenges and triumphs that awaited them, and both the princess and the human felt ready to face them. Side by side, the morning air was crisp and filled with a quiet energy, as if the palace itself knew that something significant was about to happen. The princess woke early, her thoughts focused on the human who had become an inseparable part of her life. Over the past weeks, they had shared learning, laughter, and challenges, each experience strengthening their bond. Yet today felt different. There was a sense of anticipation in the air, a feeling that the trials of the past were only preparation for something greater. The human was already waiting in the garden, watching the morning sunlight dance across the dew-covered grass. When he saw the princess, he smiled, a mixture of warmth and determination in his eyes. "Good morning," he said quietly. "Are you ready for whatever comes today?" She returned his smile, feeling a surge of confidence. "With you by my side, I am ready for anything." They spent the early hours walking through the palace, observing the grounds and checking on the staff who had been affected by the recent intruders. The human showed remarkable care and attention, ensuring that everyone felt safe and supported. The princess noticed this, feeling a deep sense of pride and affection. His presence brought balance, courage, compassion into her life in ways she had not imagined. As they moved toward the main hall, a messenger arrived, delivering news of an important diplomatic visit from a neighboring kingdom. The queen had invited the delegation to discuss matters of trade and security. But the message also carried an unspoken warning. The delegation was known for being strict, cautious, and skeptical of outsiders. The princess glanced at the human, sensing the weight of what lay ahead. "This will be a challenge," she said softly. "We must be careful, but we can face it together." The human nodded, his expression serious. "I will follow your lead and do my best to support you." In the main hall, the princess helped prepare for the arrival of the delegation, arranging seating, explaining customs, and ensuring that the human understood the expectations. He absorbed everything quickly, asking thoughtful questions and showing an eagerness to learn. The queen watched closely, noting how well he adapted to the situation. His attentiveness and respect impressed her, though she remained vigilant, ready to intervene if necessary when the delegation arrived. The palace was filled with formal greetings, bows, and careful words. The human remained at the princess's side, quietly observing and assisting when needed. He guided her discreetly through the ceremony, helping her navigate customs and conversations without drawing attention to himself. The princess moved with grace, supported by the human's steady presence, and for the first time, she felt completely confident in her role as both a princess and a protector of her people. The discussions were long and intense. The delegation asked challenging questions. Some meant to test the princess's knowledge, others to probe the human's intentions. At one point, a delegate expressed skepticism about the human's presence, questioning whether he truly belonged in the palace. The queen watched tense as the princess responded with calm confidence,